Hi everyone, thank you very much for joining us on this episode of Startup Talks. We are joined today by the senior investment professional at Shorooq Partners. Shorooq is a well-known name in the region. It has made several investments in the GCC, even in Pakistan. They've actually opened up an office as well in Pakistan in the special technology zone. And we are going to talk about all of these wonderful things that Shorooq is doing in the region and in Pakistan, and get their 2 cents on how they see the ecosystem evolving. Hi Tina, how are you doing? Thank you very much for being here.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me and giving us the opportunity to talk about Shurooq and our outlook on Pakistan on the region.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want, I can start with introducing Shurooq and who we are, and then take it from there.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Go ahead as you please.
Excellent. So essentially, Shorooq Partners were one of the leading early stage VC funds based out of Abu Dhabi. And we have offices in Dubai, Riyadh, Bahrain, Egypt, and hopefully very soon in Pakistan. So we still didn't launch the office yet. It'll be launched in the Q1.
Mm-hmm.
And we're very excited about that. We're basically all boots on the ground in the jurisdictions we heavily invest in. We're a heavily tech-focused fund, so we mainly invest in fintech, software, platform, and other tech-enabled services that are scalable. And we focus on startups that are ranging from the pre-seed stages until the Series A stages, with the geographical focus being the MENAP region. More specifically, we're looking at GCC, Egypt, Jordan, and of course, Pakistan.
Okay.
Now, at Shorooq, our main ethos is, as you mentioned, being founders partners. And we mean by that is we're always keen on finding first the best founders and A-plus founders we can back and support. And also that's one of the reasons I mentioned before why we're basically in the countries we invest in, because we want to be on the ground with the founders and help them and support them on the way. Over the past 2 years, we've backed or had the pleasure in backing more than 35 portfolio companies in Bidaya Fund 1, and essentially we were the lead investor in almost 50% of these investments. So Shorooq leads rounds. Basically, we like to lead rounds in order to create that value and add that impact, whether we're talking about the fundraising journey of the company and supporting the founders, whether we're talking about strategic support, operational support, anything they might need and require. And we are also backed by all of the sovereign wealth funds in the region, very gratefully, and also international sovereign wealth funds as well, and other very respectable LPs. And we try to also create these partnerships and bonds with our LPs and our founders, and thus just creating a well-rounded ecosystem with all the players involved. So that's basically just around Shorooq in terms of the venture equity, but we also launched a venture debt arm or a fund, where essentially we're the first venture debt fund in the region. We back startups, Series A and beyond, looking for non-dilutive growth capital. So essentially today, the ecosystem still needs a lot of support in different asset classes, and Shorooq wants to be able to support these startups and founders across their journeys in different methods. So that's a bit of a snapshot about us.
That's great. That's very a lot in detail. Now, Tina, I just want to talk a bit about Shorooq in depth, right? A lot of people, a lot of founders, especially in this region, they might not know. For some of them, the VC space is still not digested properly by them. You've been yourself been part of investment management and private equity as well, right? And you moved on to Shorooq. You've been there for over, I think, a year and a half now. What's your own personal experience at Shorooq then?
Yes, of course. So it's been an amazing journey for me on a personal and professional level, of course.
Yeah.
In Shorooq, we're a very dynamic team. We've we are growing aggressively. We started with around 5 to 6 people. Now we're around 20 people in less than a year. So we're basically a startup ourselves. So we really know what startups go through because we've been going through that as well. And it's all about actually understanding the vision and just really having that roadmap and tackling each one step by step, keeping that execution mentality, domination mentality as well. So this is something that has been a very enriching experience for me, and we've been trying our best to actually really have coverage on all of the markets, and that has been also a very enriching experience. I've been to Jordan physically, I've been to Egypt physically, so we try to also travel as the investment team, even if that's not where you're based. We get to travel and explore the markets, understand the founders, understand the ecosystem that we're looking at, because once we're looking at UAE, that's not very similar to the dynamics and demographics and the infrastructure needs of Pakistan, for example. And you really need to understand that in order, once you're evaluating a startup, you really need to know what the country needs and the landscape needs, and we're there basically try to support that.
It's good to know that in a short period of time, it's got institutional investors backing it, including prominent names like Mubadala even, right?
Yeah, so basically, when I mentioned the sovereign wealth funds, you have the backing of Mubadala, SVC, ADQ, PIF, ISSF, AlWaha fund, KVIC, the sovereign wealth fund out of Korea, Kakao, a 60 billion tech conglomerate, market cap tech conglomerate out of Korea as well. So we're also not only trying to enrich the region, we're trying to also bridge the gap between Southeast Asia and the MENA region as well.
Okay. Now, moving on from here, let's talk about a bit about startups. All right. When Shorooq is exploring a market, when it's down in investment rounds, of course, it wants to lead the rounds. But what exactly is Shorooq looking at in founders? Right? What qualities, what characteristics are they specifically looking for?
Yeah, this is an interesting question because it's kind of like not A plus B equals to C. It's never the case.
Yeah.
But when we say A plus founders, that an A plus founder could be completely different than another A plus founder. What we look at is founders with vision, founders with an execution mentality, founders that actually understand their business model and understand the difficulties in trying to achieve what they're trying to achieve. So to be grounded, and of course, aggressive founders in a sense that they're dedicating everything to the success of the business. But again, founders can be completely different, and you can feel from the dynamics, from the conversation, whether they're culturally fit with us, whether we can actually actively support these founders. And it's all about relationships. So in VC, it's all about interpersonal relationships, connecting with the founders, believing in them, believing that they're the ones that can achieve that particular target, and we actually back them.
Okay. In Pakistan, there's a trend. It's not a trend in Pakistan actually. It's all over the world. But because Pakistan is still an emerging market, right? So the VCs are more reliant on that aspect of things. VCs usually prefer founders who've actually been part of startups, right? There's a kind of like you've studied the ecosystem very closely. You obviously know of this as well, that there's a lot of investment on founders or startups which are run by ex-Kareemers or ex-Uber employees. Is that something Shorooq looks at, that investing founders who've had previous history with startups, or they can be new to the ecosystem as well?
Yeah, of course. So it does come with value if you've had experience in a
Yeah.
startup, if you've been X something. It does come with value, but you can also be an ex startup member and not be the best founder out there. So for us, we never limit ourselves to founders just being ex entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the way we look at things. If it's there and if that's a very strong credential, that's an added value. That's a plus.
Mm-hmm.
However, we have backed founders who were young. We have backed founders who are not founders before. We have backed founders who are in corporate jobs. So that we back young founders, not necessarily very young founders. So it's across the board. It's not a prerequisite. It doesn't change the decision making process for us. No.
Okay, that's good to know. You are not specifically targeting those founders or those teams. That's a good thing to know that you come to the table with an open mind, right? Now, Tina, which markets specifically is Shorooq operating in?
Mm. So as I just mentioned, it's GCC, UAE, Saudi, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and of course Egypt, Jordan, and Pakistan. So in Pakistan, we've invested in 6 companies today.
Mm-hmm.
Our first investment was in Airlift in
Mm-hmm.
2019.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had that before the Pakistani boom. We've had that in
Yeah.
Shorooq, that we knew that Pakistan was going to be the it market essentially in the coming future, and we took that bet, and it played out nicely, and we've been basically doubling down on Pakistan ever since.
Okay. You said you made 6 investments. Interestingly, you mentioned Airlift as well, right? There's a lot of speculation around, a lot of buzz going on around Airlift that they may be close to announcing another round, right? Being called the next unicorn of Pakistan as well, right? Um, so, in your opinion, how do you see the whole a holistic view, sort of like a bird's eye view of the whole ecosystem? Since you were among the first VCs to take a bet on the country, right? And down the line, it's been 3 years now, right? How do you see the system evolving, right? And what's the outlook in the future?
Mm, 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 mm. Of course. So to us, this is only the inflection point of Pakistan. So everything just started, and there you'll have a lot more airlifts that we definitely believe we will see. Airlifts is a very exciting story, but other up and coming startups today are also seem to have the same trajectory,
Mhm.
and we believe there's so much more room for that to happen. Today, the ecosystem is we can see a lot of growth in edtech. A lot of companies are up and coming in edtech today. You can see more focus on the fintech. More specifically, fintech infrastructure, and this is something that once the infrastructure play is available, and the financial inclusion is much more of a common landscape, then essentially we see another exciting boom in fintech in Pakistan. We can see agri-tech today in Pakistan being one of the most interesting as well.
Yeah.
Plays in that region. So we you just have to imagine that this is a country that you can see boom in every sector available.
Mhm.
So we have very promising projections
Mhm.
for Pakistan and what's yet to come.
Mhm.
We just want the founders to actually take the role,
Yeah.
believe in themselves, have a vision, and actually creating proper business models, and just working through that.
Okay. I was looking at Shorooq's portfolio, right? In Pakistan, it's invested in different sectors. Airlift is facilitating B2C commerce and retailers, of course, not only in Pakistan, it's in Saudi as well, right? Catering to B2B, then agri-tech as well with Taza, right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned fintech as well that you want to concentrate on that, but uh, are you sector agnostic? It doesn't look like it, but which particular sectors, say for example 2022, which sectors in
Mm.
Pakistan are most important to Shurooq right now?
So we definitely are sector agnostic. It has to be, of course, that the tech angle has to be there. We are in post-tax, we're in Digicata, we're in K-Trade. So these are the fintech, basically, elements there. Agri-tech, as you mentioned, airlifted retail.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned before, like fintech software platform, B2B plays are basically our bread and butter, as we call it. We have invested in edtech, health tech, entertainment, blockchain, deep tech. So we do not limit our scope of interest in any sector whatsoever.
Uh, a, a lot of founders, they are, and rightly so, they are not just interested in the capital being invested into their startup, right? They're looking for added value. So, with regards to Shurooq, what added value comes to the startup from Shurooq?
So, of course, that's a very good question. One thing we are is active investors. So we definitely try to help our founders in their fundraising journey. So you reach at a stage where founders are looking to attract, for example, international, global VCs. We try to support them heavily with that. We try to support them with their actually the comps and the valuations and how to structure it and how to go about it. We do a lot of educating the founders as well on strategy, on operations, on rights and wrongs, and try to support there. We also see a very crucial need to help founders understand their cap table. And this is something that isn't necessarily a key thing that founders think of. The ecosystem in general doesn't really educate founders on that, but sometimes you look at cap tables and you see a company in their seed round and already the founders are diluted more than 30%. And you look at that and you just want to tell them that that's not the right way. So we actually reconstruct their cap table for them with the right metrics, pre-money, post-money, help them understand and basically build up on that. Talent sourcing, of course, and most importantly, two more very important things would be the geographic expansion, whether it's in different countries within the MENA region, but also we offer that for the Korea as well. We try to bridge that gap for both. And also one more thing would be on the networks. The global networks, our founding partners, our partners have worked across the globe. Some of them have experience in VC in the US. Some of them have very strong operational backgrounds. So we also try to help them with that.
Okay. Now,
I mean, Taimur, it all depends on what the founders want. Sometimes founders ask you specific things that you didn't used to do, but now you do for them. So it's just about what they want and how we can actually help them.
Yeah, so it's a really good thing to know that Shurooq is not you get all sorts of investors in the world, right? So there are some who just want to part with the money and expect returns at were down the line, right? And there are some who play it forward and keep a front foot on things, right? So that's a good thing to know that Shurooq is among the better side of the VC space, right? And embraces the founders with open arms, and it's open to help them out in any way possible. So that's a good thing to know. Now, Tina, Shorooq is in the process of opening up an office here in STZ, right? Obviously, I don't know how far you are into hiring resources or you've done the process, but uh, what is that office? Of course, is going to follow up on its already made investments, but what is that office going to do in Pakistan? Is that also going to extend support to startups here?
Of course, definitely. So it's the same thing across the offices we have here. We have an office in Dubai, an office in Abu Dhabi, an office in Egypt, Saudi, Riyadh, and in Bahrain. And all of them have investment teams, partners. So we run a cross-partner
Mm-hmm.
team.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, the Pakistani office will be a replica of our offices here. You'll have
Mm-hmm.
an investment team. We already hired a principal who's currently based in Dubai, but he's from Pakistan. He's worked in Pakistan,
Mm-hmm.
ex-Kareem, as you mentioned. So he knows the startup ecosystem there. He knows the country more than anyone. So we did that. And of course, you'd have the separate investment team of investment professionals, of different people also in that office. And they will be doing what we're doing today, evaluating startups, creating or opening up a resource for the founders so that we want to become like, if you're a founder, you want to stop by to our office, talk to us, pitch, discuss your issues, that'll be the way. Today, we've invested it on Zoom in startups. We haven't met the founders yet.
Yeah.
And we have done that very nicely. But that doesn't take away the value of actually meeting the founders and face to face and talking to them and building up on the strategies together and understanding the concerns together. So the value of the office is enormous, and the more we do, the more we make up from it or make out from it.
Okay, that's great. I'd request you over here to help me connect with that principal of yours, right? When I'm in Islamabad, I'd love to have a cup of coffee with him, right?
For sure.
Explore what's
So he's currently in Dubai, but I'll have you connect with him as well. He's definitely going to Pakistan soon to have that cup of
okay.
coffee.
And now, Tina, when we talk about startups, right? Last year was an exceptional year for the country, right? Broke so many records in investments. A lot of opportunities were created in the country, and they continue to do so. What's your perception in 2022? And there must be some sectors or some startups that Shorooq is looking at. Are we expecting some announcements as well this year?
Definitely. So in terms of 2022, what it looks like, we've always said we're very big on infrastructure plays. So we will continue to search for these infrastructure plays in different verticals. So this is something we've actively done in the different regions we look at, and we'll continue to do that in Pakistan. We will also support non-infrastructure plays. It just depends. It has to be a full package, right? Every deal comes with its own intricacies and concerns and highlights and risks and so on and so forth. But the package needs to be great founders, amazing value proposition, business model value proposition, excuse me, and the market for it, and an A-plus team in general. And if it's an interesting sector, we double down. We have our we have our thesis on different spaces. So sometimes we do not actively invest in a certain space in a particular period of time, but that doesn't mean this is not a space we continue to actively source and look at. We just build up our knowledge more and more and more, and our conviction on the space. And then when we feel the time is right and we find the right team, we do back these.
Okay. So hopefully by December 2022, we'll see a couple of announcements as well, right? So
for sure, not for sure.
that's
For sure.
that's good. Of course, it's not possible to reveal them beforehand. Now, Tina, we're almost coming to an end here, right? As not a question, but as a request, is there a message on behalf of Shorooq, right, that you'd like to convey to startups in Pakistan, right, and what Shorooq can do for them?
For sure. So a message to the startups would be, please do reach out to us. We have a large team and we will dedicate our time and resources to actively talk to you and essentially see how we can collaborate. We always look forward to exploring potential opportunities with passionate entrepreneurs. So do not hesitate to do that, where you can log into our website, and basically send out your application. We'll review and get back to you. We're very also try our best to be as timely as possible because we know the struggles that founders go through in their fundraising process. So we give a sprint or pass kind of response. And basically, we're very active investors at Shorooq. So we basically are keen to continue to learn more about the ecosystem, the founders, and how we can collaborate further.
Okay, that's great. Before we go, I just want to say thank you very much for being here. It was great talking to you. Please give my regards to Tariq Fawad. I think his podcast that comes out every Wednesday, I think it's super, super cool. Right, I've seen
We're doing something interesting for Pakistan on that podcast soon.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So I'll keep an eye out for that as well.
For sure.
Tina, thank you very much. Right, it was great speaking to you.
Pleasure.
Loved this chat. Hopefully we'll do this again. Maybe when I'm in Dubai, hopefully we can meet up
for sure.
For coffee or something. And I definitely like to visit the office in Pakistan.
Of course. We'll definitely extend an invite once ready.
All right. Thank you very much, Tina.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Enjoy yourself.
Bye.
Bye.